If you're thinking about getting into model railroading or you're already an addict, boy, do we have a project for you. In this episode, we're gonna do some logging. Well, actually, we're gonna make some logs the regular guy way. And I'll show you how I do it, starting right now. Hey, welcome to It's My Railroad, the how-to show for regular people. If you haven't already done it, how about pushing that subscribe button down there? We have so many more of these episodes coming up. Watching me build up my layout the regular guy way. So far it's been a lot of fun, digging, hanging out with the community. It's a good time. Don't want you to miss a single thing. As an example, in this episode, we are going to finish off some of that terraforming we did last episode. And then we're gonna make the logs that ultimately will be used as the roadbed for the rails up in the logging camp. You remember last episode, a couple episodes ago, I showed you a diorama of how I wanna make these rails, an idea I have. We're gonna see how that comes together as we move forward. Okay, just before we move into the hobby room, a little bit of housekeeping. I'm gonna introduce in this episode something that I use all the time on my model railroad, and it's called chalk paint. Chalk paint is a paint that it's water soluble. When it goes on, it dries kind of flat and chalky looking. You can mix it down with water, make stains out of it. I use it, like I said, for weathering, for making my mountains, my scenery. It's great. I can't say enough about it. Actually, my wife, who's into crafting and has her own channel, supposedly chic, she turned me on to this because she uses it for the same kind of purposes, weathered wood, things of that nature. It's a great paint. I highly recommend it. I use black, brown, dark gray, and sometimes a little bit of white. It's kind of hard to find white for real in the real world, so I don't use it a whole lot, just kind of when I absolutely have to. I've got other colors of other kinds of paint we use for details here and there, but that's primarily what we use the chalk paint for. Chalk paint can be found at craft stores, Lowe's, Home Depot, wherever. It's not an uncommon paint. I've got some links down here in the description if you want some more information about chalk paint or where to get it. But again, this is something you're going to see us use quite a bit as we move forward. Okay, with that out of the way, just one last little thing to cover before we go into the hobby room, and that is this. Between last episode and this episode, I went through and I did just a little bit more work up in the logging camp. I sanded down some of the Sculptamold. I cut out some of the styrofoam to make a little gully. Added some more of that wood filler because it wasn't quite right yet, and sanded all of that down. So what I did though is I just went ahead and made a video montage of that happening. So at least you can sort of see the techniques and kind of the stuff that I was doing in the in-between times. But in future episodes, those actual techniques will be highlighted so we can all get caught up on it. So for now, just enjoy the next 5 minutes or so of this video, and then we'll head straight into the hobby room. Hey, welcome back to the hobby room and to the Brown Smith Railroad. As you saw in that little preamble there, we've kind of gone through and done a little bit more work. Sanded this down a little bit smoother here, went ahead and replaced or added some more into here and sanded it down. I cut myself a little gully in back here that I'm going to show you a little closer later. And then we're going to cut another one over here because I kind of like the way it came out. I'll just kind of show you how I did it. Actually, we're kind of prepared up here, other than that, to put some track in. So rather than getting all excited about going up here, I wanted to switch gears for a minute and talk about how I'm going to experiment with laying the track up here. Normally what we would do, or what I've done in the rest of the layout, go ahead and mark out where the rails go, and then we will take some caulk, some DAP Quick Seal Ultra White Caulk. I don't know, I buy the white caulk. I don't know if it's a specific brand, but I know it works. And we go along and we just caulk out where the rails go. And you take a putty knife and you smooth that out real nice. And then we take our cork roadbed and we lay it in there. And then we take our track and lay it right on top. That's how we normally do it. And matter of fact, that's how I will normally do it normally. In this case though, like I said, in the logging camp, I want to try to do something different. Rather than using this cork roadbed as the roadbed, we're going to make some logs like this. I showed this to you in a previous episode, and I'm going to show you how I make these, so we're going to get a close-up, hopefully one that's not blurry, in just a second. But the intention would be to duplicate the cork roadbed effect with these logs coming all the way down to lift it up off the ground. Again, the theory being that on some of these hillsides right here, there's mud and rain and debris and stuff falling down, coming down the hills. And if the rails are kind of raised up, it can kind of go under, or at least it won't build up on top of the rails so much. I've seen some indication that that's how it was really done, in sort of a bootstrap environment, which I'm pretending this is, and it's my railroad, so that's how we're going to do it. All right, so I set up this little work area here, so maybe I can show you at least how I turn these sticks into logs. It's really not rocket science. There's plenty of ways guys do this. I'm just going to kind of show you the way I do it, and then you know, maybe you can come up with your own version of it. So as you can see, there's nothing really special about this stick. It's just a 1/8 inch dowel that I bought over at Michael's nearby. I bought a whole bunch of them because we're going to be doing a bunch of this. But anyway, this is kind of how it looks when it starts out. So what we're going to do is, I've got my hobby saw here, and the thing with the hobby saw is it's got the teeth on it that we're going to use to sort of scrape out a barky kind of look on this stick. And basically I just take it and I just sort of scrape it like this. Just scrape it along there, kind of at an angle. Scrape, 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 scrape like that. And then I take the blade and turn it actually just sort of right perpendicular to the wood and just get it going like this. That kind of puts two different kinds of scoring in the stick, and it starts making it look, at least for in scale, kind of like it's got bark on it. Okay, like all things in scale, this is really hard to see, but there's now a sort of scraped up, barky kind of looking texture on here. Now this isn't the only treatment we're going to give it to get that texture, but this is like the first thing that I do. And then from here we go through and we start adding some paint to it. Okay, so the paint we're going to use to sort of turn this more loggish, it's called chalk paint. And I have a black here, and I've got a gray that dries a little darker than the gray you see here, and a brown that actually dries a little darker than that brown when it dries. Now these are water-based paints, and the cool thing about it is we can take this and really water it down, almost make a stain out of it, which is the first thing I'm gonna do. I've got some water over here on a brush, and I just barely dab it into the black, and then we just start rubbing that on. And we're not really trying to get it like all even necessarily. We're just trying to get some black on there right now. Just kind of get it on there enough where it covers it. I think it's okay to leave some kind of unpainted spots. I got a paper towel here. I just wipe it off with the paper towel real quick. And then we'll hold this up and take a look. So that's kind of what it looks like at that phase. It's got some black on it. It's not completely covering it. You can almost start making out the definition of the bark, but we're not done with it yet. Next thing I'll do is I'll jump in and grab some gray.
Because what I've seen a lot of people do, and it kind of makes sense, is trees have apparently have a lot of gray in them. At least in the model railroad world. I don't have any gray trees in my yard. They're all brown, but in the model railroad world, for some reason, this actually makes it look tree-ish. I take that and I wipe it off with the paper towel. And now it's getting a little more loggish. Now you get the gray on there and you get the black on there. But again, you're like, Steve, it doesn't look like a log. We're not done yet. The next thing I want to do is I want to take my hobby saw again, and while this is wet, and you know what, if this stick, for this next step, if this stick isn't wet, like damp, this isn't going to work what I'm getting ready to do. So what I'll do is I'll just make sure that we put a lot of water on this thing and make it kind of damp. And here's why. We're going to take the hobby saw now, and I'm just going to start hacking at this thing. And the thing is, if you hack at it and it's not wet, then what happens is you just get sawdust. What I'm trying to do is get a roughened up texture. I just turn it in my hand while I'm hitting it, like this. And again, we haven't even put the brown on yet. Now we may need some more gray and black too. As a matter of fact, we probably will, now that I'm looking at this. But so I hack it all up pretty good like this. Okay, so I'm gonna hold this up now. You're starting to see it's kind of a boogered up piece of wood. Nothing too exciting about it yet, but again, we're just getting started. Now we're gonna put some brown on it. And for the brown, I do basically the same kind of thing. Just sort of start whitewashing some brown on there. Dry. We just put some brown on like we did with the black and the gray. We just get it all wet and get it on there, and just kind of not in any uniform way. Just kind of get it on there. And then we take our paper towel again and wipe it down. That's going to have two effects. It's going to wipe that brown down, and it also starts taking that texture and kind of smoothing it out a little bit, making it a little more loggish. Here, take a look at this. Is it looking loggish? It's like, Steve, there's too much brown in the log. I know, it didn't come out the way I wanted it. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit more black. This we can do. Same thing, we whitewash some black on there. This kind of uneven, because we're figuring these trees aren't exactly even. Not only that, these are going to be logs when we're done. It's not actually a whole tree. And we wipe it down again. I don't know, what do you think? Is that starting to look a little loggish? It kind of does, but you know, to me, I think it's still too light. I think we need to add some more dark to it. I'm going to grab some more of that black and just keep putting it on. Now, here's the thing, my friends, I don't have an exact science for this. This is just the regular guy version, and I keep going until I kind of see what I'm trying to see. I don't necessarily get it right on the first try. I just sort of do it until I get something I like. That's looking even more like a log now. I'm kind of seeing the grain. I'm kind of seeing the darkness of it. Maybe just a little bit more black. We'll just keep going with the black. But this time, instead of wiping it off with the paper towel, I'm just gonna go like this. I'll just close it on there like this, so we don't take as much of it off. It's like I said, it's like a stain. It's actually soaking into the wood right now because there's so much water in it. But I don't know. It's kind of looking like a log now. What do you think? Is that looking loggish? Does it look like a log? I think it does. Maybe just, I don't know, maybe just a smidge more black. Well, actually, I want to let this one sort of just set up, but we'll just go with this one for now. But there's another thing I can show you too with this. We do the same thing. We'll go through and we'll prep the stick. Because in nature, you know, there's a lot of variation. So to get a variation on this, I'll go through and give the same kind of barky structure, like that. Can you imagine, oops, I broke my stick, well, whatever. Can you imagine doing this for like a 60-inch piece of roadbed? Yeah, that's a lot of sticks. right, so I got my bark texture done. Now, instead of adding the black, let's just go straight to gray. Let me show you something. We'll kind of gray that on there, nice and wet. And paper towel. Okay, so now instead of starting off with a black, you see now we've got a gray kind of thing. It's like a light gray. It's like, I'd never see a tree that color gray, Steve. I know. I'm not done yet. Hang on a second. We can try something else. Go through and stain up here and there. Not the whole thing. We're just going to add some brown like that. Kind of uneven. And this one will wipe off. Like this. Now I've got some brown on there and barky. It's like too light to be a log, Steve. I know, almost done. Now we'll take the black. Very, very thin black. Wipe that on there. Same three colors, right? But we put them on in a different order. So what we're left with then, the one on the top right there, that's the one we just did. It's a little bit more brownish. The one on the bottom's a little bit more grayish. You know, you can just work with all kinds of different versions of this. Once you cut them up into pieces, like I'm making little logs out of them, it's going to give a great degree of variation. If we want to, we can just take the little one that we just did and, you know, we can experiment. We can go a little crazy on it. Let's get some black in here. Let's make this thing, add some black to it. Like that. See, before I wipe it off, it's got all this black on it. Right? All right. Now look, there's two logs there, done with the same colors of paint, but they look different. There's a subtle difference in the shading between them. It makes them unique. Now you can get it by reversing the order that you paint them, or applying more or less, or just, you know, just playing around with it. Let's take this top one more thing. Look, I'll add just a little bit more, let's say brown and black at one time to it. Watch what this does. Again, we're just experimenting, man. We're going crazy. We're having fun. We're being regular dudes. See, by adding some more like blackish mixed with brownish, I even have another shade of this. But the new one, you know, we didn't go through and hack it up again. We left it kind of smooth. All right, so back up on the layout. I know it's kind of hard to see some of this stuff with these camera angles, and to be honest with you, maybe by season 2 I'll figure out how to get the focus and everything to work on this thing. But for now, we're just regular guys, and this is how we do it. So what I think we should do now, we've already got this smooth roadbed up here. I think I'm gonna go through and stain a whole bunch of these, cut a whole bunch of them, and get ready to lay them down, and then we'll get that down. Kind of what we want to do is go ahead and lay those down, and before we get all crazy though, I want to come back and start butchering all of this scenery right here, right after the rails, so I can get as much of a hillside look as I can. I think if I do it in advance, we might either run into where the rails are going to be, or have this like long flat surface that I don't think will work as well. So anyway, I think let me get on that, and then we'll go ahead and lay some track.
And we're back. Wow, really have some momentum going up there in the old logging camp, don't we? Now it really is going to get going. We've made some logs. That means we can make the roadbed and put the track on it, maybe run my trains. I keep promising it, it keeps not happening, but it's going to at some point, I guarantee it. So guys, like I've been saying, this is how I make logs up on the BSR. It's not the only way to make logs. It may not even be the best way to make logs, all right? I'm really interested to hear how you make logs for your model railroad. Doesn't matter what scale it is. Do me a favor, let's put some comments down in the comment section. Hey, maybe even put in a link to a video or to your channel that shows us how you make your logs. And if you've never done it before, again, I encourage you. go down to Michael's, buy some 30-inch long, 1/8-inch sticks, get some hacking tools and some paint, and just explore, see what happens. That's how I learned how to do it. Watch some videos, tried it for myself, came up with a technique that I like. I encourage you to do that. Hey, if you're enjoying this channel, do me a favor, push that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the episodes coming up. If you like this video, pushing the like button, that's okay. And if you know someone else that's into model railroading or wants to get into it and you think they can use some of this information, just share the video with them. I won't mind, I won't even charge you for it. Now let me ask you this. If you haven't started building your model railroad yet, what are you waiting for? Flying elephants? Oh wait, that happened with Dumbo, didn't it? Well, I guess that ought to do. Thanks again for watching. My name is Steve Brown, and I will see you next time. We have got a lot more of these episodes coming up. We're sharing some great stuff. What was that? This coffee is really getting me.